What's up guys, and welcome to my 4.4 updated Aventurine guide. In this video I'm taking over everything you do need to know in order to understand and build them, including a kit overview, best Lightcones, best Relic sets and Planar Ornaments, main sets you want to run, substack goals, and finally general team building ideas. Aventurine's basic attack does imaginary damage based off his defense to a designated enemy. His skill provides a shield to the team with damage that can block 24% of Aventurine's defense plus 320 that will last for 3 turns. Getting the shield repeatedly can stack the shield effect up to 200% of the shield effect provided by the skill. His ultimate will first gain a random 1 to 7 points of blind bet, inflict unnerved on the designated enemy you attack for 3 turns, and does imaginary damage equal to 270% of Aventurine's defense to that enemy target. An ally hitting the enemy with unnerved will have crit damage dealt increased by 15%. His talent will increase the allies with fortified wagers effect res by 50%. Allies with the shield being attacked will give Aventurine a blind bet stack. Aventurine having the shield will allow him to resist crowd control debuffs that can trigger once every 2 turns. Aventurine will also gain an additional point of blind bet when he is attacked. Reaching 7 points of blind bet will make Aventurine consume the 7 points to launch a 7-hit follow-up attack, doing imaginary damage equal to 25% of Aventurine's defense to a random enemy, and blind bet is capped at 10 points. His technique is able to increase Aventurine's defense based on luck. Every time you use it, you have a chance for a 24% increase, a high chance for 36% increase, and a small chance for a 60% increase. Using it multiple times will give you the highest effect for the next battle, and when the battle starts, increases all allies' defense by the corresponding value for 3 turns. For his bonus traces, his A2 will increase Aventurine's own crit rate based on the number of defense he has exceeding 1600. Every 100 past 1600 will increase his own crit rate by 2% up to 48%. His A4 provides the team a shield when the battle begins, with a shield effect that is equal to 100% of the one provided from the skill for 3 turns. His A6 gives Aventurine a blind bet point when an ally launches a follow-up attack as long as they have the shield from Aventurine that triggers up to 3 times. The trigger count will also be reset at the start of Aventurine's turn. Aventurine launching his talent's follow-up attack will provide the team with a shield that can offset damage equal to 7% of Aventurine's defense plus 96, and additionally will give more of a shield to the ally with the lowest current shield percentage equal to 7% of Aventurine's defense plus 96, and will last for 3 turns. Finally, for his Eidolons, his E1 will increase the team's crit damage by 20% for anyone with a shield, and now his ultimate can also provide the shield with an effect equal to the skill for 3 turns. His E2 will lower the all-type res by 12% for 3 turns to enemies that are hit by his basic attack. His E4 makes it to where when he launches his follow-up attack, it will first increase Aventurine's defense by 40% for 2 turns, and hits per action for his talent's follow-up attack will increase by 3, so instead of 7, it is now 10. And his E6 will increase the damage dealt by Aventurine by 50% for everyone on the team that holds a shield up to 150%. So to get the full effect, you would need at least 3 people shielded to get the full 150%. For Aventurine's best Lightcones, his best one still is overall his own signature option, providing the wearer 40% defense, 40% crit damage for the wearer when giving a shield to an ally, lasts for 2 turns, and also 10% vulnerability when the wearer does use a follow-up attack against an enemy target, so that's also some extra damage there. Overall, this does provide you everything you do need, gives you more defense for a higher shield, so 5-star with good base defense, and also does provide some extra crit damage for Aventurine, so it is a mix of his own damage. To top it all off, it is very slight vulnerability. Remember, this unit did come out in 2.x, so it's only 10%. However, if you're putting him on a team that may not have too much vulnerability at all, in that case, it can actually be quite valuable. Simple yet effective, this overall is really good for his shield strength, also his own damage, which you don't really lean into anymore. So until maybe a future Noble Flare, this part isn't going to be too useful, but it is still there, and then also some extra vulnerability, which is going to be good for the team's damage. But overall, it's his best option. However, another option that's still technically tied for the best option is the Battle Pass Lightcone, as it does increase the shield effect for the wearer, or the wearer's provided shield effect by 12%, and also 12% damage for anyone that has a shield provided from the wearer. S5, 24% shield effect, and 20% damage. This also just fully leans into mainly the shield effect part, also a pretty okay base defense, and a bit of extra support on top of that, so it doesn't go fully into damage. I say mainly tied for best because not many people are probably going to go for his signature anymore, so this is really a good alternative, and is most likely the one you're going to consider since it does what you want to do, a stronger shield, by increasing the shield effect and also a bit of supportive capabilities, which is kind of what he's primarily there to do. So it is worse than his signature, but it's the next best option you would have if you're trying to maximize pulls and you are a Battle Pass player. Other than that, Japard's Lightcone is also good with up to a total of 48% defense and also 24% effect hit rate, and also an increased chance to be attacked. Since everything he does scales off defense, his damage even, his also shield potential, this is able to provide you even more defense than his signature does, as long as you have both effects active. which is just when the wearer is attacked, which is going to be very easy, especially now when there's a bunch of AoE attacks. and also increases the chance for him to get hit. So that's also better for blind bet stacking. The effect hit rate part, you just ignore that part entirely. It's just a 5-star solid base defense as well, and then the super high defense you can get out of it for good shield potential. You can also use day 1 of my new life for the defense it does provide, and also all-type res for allies, which it's mainly for the defense as 24% defense. And some all-type res is going to be there. Same thing also applies to the This Is Me Lightcone, which you mainly just focus on the defense, not really the extra part. So either or, if you just happen to have this sitting around at S5, 32% defense, that's going to be an option there as well. Landu's Choice also does work with a increased chance to be attacked and also damage reduction by 16% and 24% at S5. Unfortunately, this doesn't provide anything outside of just having the increased chance of being attacked and reducing damage, so no defense for beefier shields or anything. It's just going to slightly direct away damage and also be able to take a bit more damage. Worse than the other options, but is still there. And if you really want to, the trend actual option is there still, if you're still using Aventurine with Acheron, because it does provide defense, so you can still use it for the 32% stick, so that's an option there. And then a 100% base chance to inflict a dot state, which also does damage based off defense, which he scales off of, so it's alright. The wearer just has to be attacked, which unfortunately, his actual base kit doesn't have any increased chance, but it's still there for the AoE hits. You just position him in the middle, and then you're most likely going to get it most of the time. Funny enough, he is also on the Lightcone right there. So if you still want to do that, then it's there, although not necessarily recommended. But if you are doing it for the defense primarily, then go ahead. Mainly just focus on, if you are a Battle Pass player, just get the Journey Forever Peaceful. That's going to do you the best. And then his signature being the overall best. Other than that, just focus on Moment of Victory. Those would be your main go-tos. For best relic sets, overall, you just want to run the Self-Enshrouded Recluse set with the 2-piece providing 10% shield effect, 4-piece also providing 12% shield effect, and also 15% crit damage to anyone that has a shield provided by the wearer. Very simple yet very effective, and is the best in swap for any shielder, as it is able to provide up to a 22% increase to shield effect, which is going to greatly increase sustaining potential, and also a bit of supportive capability with 15% crit damage to anyone having a shield provided from Aventurine, as his whole role now is mainly just being the sustain, and you want to tie into that fully. You just want to go full 4-piece Self-Enshrouded Recluse. If not this set, you can also run 4-piece Knight, as this was the previous option and still does work, with 15% defense from the 2-piece, and the 4-piece will increase max damage absorbed by shields created by the wearer by 20%. Some extra defense is going to be good for shield and also a bit of damage, I guess. And then it's mainly for the 4-piece being able to increase the damage absorbed by shield. Self-Enshrouded Recluse is better for sustaining and also has a bit of support, which is why I recommend that one instead of this one. However, if you want to farm for a Self-Enshrouded and you just happen to have a Knight set laying around, you could use this in the meantime. Or depending on the content you do, Knight set 4-piece could just be the one you use. Other than that, you can combine 2-piece with 2-piece Knight and 2-piece of Self-Enshrouded. If you want a faster Aventurine, you can do 2-piece of one of the speed sets, like 2-piece Diviner, 2-piece Warrior Goddess, 2-piece Relieved Ordeal, or 2-piece Hackerspace. That's mainly if you just want a fast Aventurine. Primarily, just go ahead and do yourself a favor and get a 4-piece Self-Enshrouded set. It's going to do you the best. The reason I don't necessarily recommend running a DPS set anymore is because unless you have like a really high invested Aventurine, and I mean like E6 S1 to E6 S5, the damage on any team he's going to do is not necessarily going to be great. Hence why, unless you are very max invested, that would be the only time I'd recommend going a bit down on a sustaining potential and going up in the Pioneer set for his best 4-piece for damage. But again, that's really for the people that are going for full E6. If you want to get the best quote-unquote min-max results from sustaining and also damage, for anyone else that is E2 or below, or just go full sustain, it's going to do you the best results, since his damage nowadays is very negligible. For Planar Ornaments, you just give him any of the supportive sets you do have available, with the best one primarily being Lushaka for 5% energy regen rate and 12% attack for the character positioned first in the team lineup. So you just need to ensure the character that is positioned first gets a benefit from attack percent. As long as they do that, Lushaka will be one of the best options. If paired with imaginary DPS, then you can also just run the Penacony, which also has 5% energy regen rate and 10% damage for others that are the same type as the wearer, so imaginary would be required. Since energy regen isn't super needed on someone like Aventurine, something like Keel is still a good option with 10% effect res, and reaching 30% or higher gives everyone 10% crit damage, which effect res is not going to be a problem since he gives himself and everyone with the shield 50% effect res, so you get that 10% crit damage for the team, which includes himself. For the main sets on the relics, for the body, for best results for sustaining, run defense percent. If you're high invested and you're going for damage, then instead it would be crit damage. For the feet, you run speed. For the orb, defense percent. And for the link rope, defense percent. For the substats, primarily you're just focusing on defense and speed. Speed, just get him to breakpoint, which is going to be very easy. Defense, you want to get at least 4k, because 4k is to max out his crit rate trace, but honestly, you're aiming for even more than that, from 4,500 to 5,000 plus. just for best sustaining results. 4k was like the whole like general requirement to max out the crit rate stuff, as I mentioned, and you will max that out so you can get some crit to balance some damage, but as I really did mention multiple times now, his damage is super negligible unless he's super max invested. That's why that's not really the focus. You just focus on getting as much defense as you possibly can. Then for other roles, you can focus on some crit rate, crit damage if you really want, just to min-max the amount of damage you can do, even though it's not going to be too much, alongside getting some effect res so you can avoid getting CC'd, because even though he has the resist, there still can be times where you will actually get CC'd outside of that turn, so some more there does work. So first, breakpoint speed, you can get it even higher if you're aiming for hyperspeed, even that could be really good, especially for a sustaining role, so you can use shield as much as you can from the skill, get more energy by getting more attacks to ult more, so on and so forth. And then the defense, get it also as much as you can, ideally nowadays to get it to around 5k, and you would be good to go. And past that, you can get some crit rate, crit damage rolls, and effect res. For some general team building ideas, as Aventurine is a sustain, you can really throw him on anywhere where you do need a shielder, so kind of just any team that isn't already fully set with the sustain, which is most of them. But if you don't have the best option like Permissary Downing available, then you can use Aventurine. You kind of just use them anywhere that isn't like an HP drain related team except Blade, just because the follow-up team can use it. So ideally he can go on follow-up teams if you still use Face Shout as a combination. I'll do some weird wacky combinations here. So a team could look like this, or instead of Asheville, if you're using Blade, you can do that. The only thing that you do want to note is when you are using Aventurine with Blade can't skill anymore if you do have 1 HP. So you want to be able to finish the battle before you do get to 1 HP. Aventurine cannot heal, so once you hit 1 HP, you're going to be constantly providing a shield, so you can't really do the get knocked out of Infinite Fury from Blade and go back into its strat unless your shield gets broken, which is going to be pretty unlikely on a good built Aventurine. So the anti-synergy is there, however, if you're in a shorter battle, it can work, but as I mentioned, you can use him as a general sustain. Like, you could honestly throw him on a dot team if you really want. Like, again, there's always going to be better options, but as a general sustain, you can very much use him where you do need, so a team could be like that. You could also throw him on like an archer team with something like that, and last thought with Tribute would be Rin instead when she does release, so there's also that. If you're running Akron teams, you can do the Akron Mortanic Blade. Again, be sure to be aware of the synergy, and by synergy I mean anti-synergy. Last thought could go to someone like Welt. If you have E2 Akron, then instead it would be Astral. If you're not running Mortanics and you're running Welt instead, just because of the anti-synergy, it could be something like this. Again, E2 Akron. If no Astral, you can go ahead and put like the OG Silverwolf, or instead you can use Cypher. A lot of options. As you get it, the Aventurine slot is just kind of anywhere that isn't like a full HP drainer. Like, you're obviously not going to use him with Castris, you're not going to use him with OG Blade, and ideally you don't use him with characters that are super fast and take a lot of turns like Aglia, because they will expire the shield very quickly. And that is the full 4.4 updated Aventurine guide. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, drop a like, would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell for future videos like this, along with all the tips to our content. I'll see you later. Peace out.